This is a SnapEd New York video presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Beckman and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SnapEd New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today I'm going to be making pasta with beans and greens. We'll be posting a link to the recipe below, and you can also find the recipe on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. Last month I made a bulgur and chickpea salad. If you ever want to see any of the other What's Cooking with NYSOFA demonstrations, make sure you head over to the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel, where all of our past episodes are archived. Make sure you watch all the way to the end of this video so you can find out what we will be making next month. This pasta with greens and beans recipe has both whole grain pasta in it and several different vegetables, so it's a great source of fiber. This recipe makes 12 3/4 cup servings, and that might be a lot to make for only 1 or 2 people, so you can easily cut the recipe in half, and that is what I'll be doing today. Now, before I start putting this recipe together, let's look at the My Plate graphic. Today's recipe covers the fruits and vegetables section of My Plate and the greens section of My Plate. My Plate is a tool that we can use to remind us of the recommendations from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans provide science-based advice for making food choices that promote good health, a healthy weight, and help prevent diseases like cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. Remember that everything you eat and drink over time matters. You want to find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. The right mix can help you be healthier now and in the future. Most Americans don't get enough fruits and vegetables every day. It's always a good idea to eat more fruits and vegetables because they're lower in calories and full of fiber. That helps regulate our digestive system. Fruits and vegetables are also full of vitamins and minerals that our bodies need. Whole grains are another important component of a healthy diet. This recipe uses whole wheat pasta. You want to make half of your grains whole grains. Whole grains are another great source of both fiber and vitamins and minerals. Now, before you start cooking, remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer before you start preparing food. Let's look at the ingredients for this recipe. I'm going to describe what's listed in the recipe, but here you'll only see half of those ingredients. This recipe calls for 1 16-ounce package of whole wheat pasta. In the interest of time, I've cooked my pasta ahead of time, and this is about a half of a box of pasta cooked. You'll need 2 medium onions chopped. I have that here. This is a carrot. I'm going to chop that up in just a minute. This is 3 cloves of garlic that I minced. You can use jar garlic or garlic powder if you want to. If it's hard to sort of chop things up, it's okay to use the already chopped up jar garlic. The recipe calls for 2 pounds of spinach or kale, which is about 1 large bunch, and I have about half of that right here. You need 2 15-ounce cans of white beans. I'm using cannellini beans. That's right here, and this is only 1 can. Here's about 2 tablespoons of canola oil. I have 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. You could use fresh if you have it or you want to. This is also, it calls for a teaspoon of dried red pepper flakes. I am adding less than that because I don't like things very spicy, but you can add more if you want to. The recipe also calls for 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I have that here, and a half a teaspoon of black pepper, which is right here. Now you can add less salt if you want to cut down on your sodium intake. The first directions tell you to cook the pasta and reserve a cup of the pasta water. Now I cooked my pasta yesterday and I didn't reserve the pasta water, so I'm actually going to use some chicken broth that I have here instead of the pasta water. You can also use vegetable broth. Just look for low sodium varieties of broth in your store. Next, the recipe tells you to dice the onions and the carrots and mince the garlic while the pasta is cooking. Now, I've already chopped my onions and I minced my garlic, so I'm going to chop up this carrot here. So let me start out by chopping this up. Usually when I'm going to cut a carrot, I like to cut it into 2 or 3 pieces depending on the size of it. So I'm going to chop this into 3 pieces because it's pretty long. And then I like to chop it in half. And then put the flat sides of the carrot down and chop it in half again. You can put it in more pieces, cut it in more pieces if you want to. This usually works out for me. So I'm going to cut it in half. I'll cut it in half again. And then with the last piece, we're going to do that one more time. Cut that in half and then in half again. All right, and that's when you can start then chopping it up into smaller pieces. So I'll start with the smallest pieces here. You want to make sure you keep your fingers out of the way, curl them back away from the knife, and then you can sort of push the food along as you're chopping. And that can help keep your fingers out of the way of the knife. That looks pretty good. They're nice and small pieces. They'll cook a little faster the smaller they are. Again, we'll do that with another piece of carrot. We're going to chop these up. Carrots are a root vegetable. They usually keep very well at the refrigerator. And usually you can get them locally here in New York State during the summer months. And even into the fall, because they're a root vegetable, they don't mind the cold as much as some of the other locally grown fruits and vegetables. So you can really get them, even into September and October sometimes. So let's keep chopping these up and make sure that they're fairly uniform in size. They'll cook a little more evenly if they're sort of uniform in size. There we go. That. And we just have a little bit more. It's always easier if you have something round like an apple or a carrot. If you cut it and make a flat side and then put that against the cutting board, then you're going to have less trouble with it rolling all over the place. All right, that looks pretty good. Let me get all of these carrot pieces. Okay. So those look pretty nice and uniform. Now, you may need to rinse your greens, either your kale or spinach, whatever you're using. This spinach was already pre-washed, and it didn't have a lot of stems on it, so I didn't have to chop it up, and the leaves are pretty small, so I think that that's going to work out pretty well. In a large skillet here, we're going to add the oil to the pan. The pan's hot. It's been heating up for a little while. So that goes in first. And next we're going to do the carrots and the onions and the garlic. So I'm going to add the garlic first. Let me get my spoon here. You can hear that sizzle a little bit in the oil. That looks pretty good. Oh, that smells delicious. All right, let's add the onions. Put those in. Garlic and onion is always a good way to start a recipe. It'll give your recipe lots and lots of flavor. And things like onions are, even though they're white, sometimes people think, oh, they're white so they don't have any health benefits or they don't have vitamins and minerals in them, and that's actually not true. So the white in the onion is actually a pigment, and it does have some health benefits. So adding onions to your dishes is helping to increase your fruit and vegetable consumption. Last, I'm going to add these carrots. Put those in there for some color. And this and the spinach is going to add some beautiful color to this dish. You really probably can use whatever kind of beans you want. I'm using the cannellini beans, the white beans. You can probably use black beans or kidney beans, whatever you like. It's one of the nice things about cooking at home is sometimes you can save some money and you can make the dish the way that you like it. All right, that's starting to look pretty good. Normally I would cook this a little bit more. Usually you want to cook it until the onions start to get a little translucent or a little more see-through. So, okay. Next we're going to add in the greens. And if you've ever cooked fresh spinach before or fresh kale before, you know it starts out very large and then shrinks down because it releases quite a bit of water. So we're going to put that in there. And you may find that to make it sort of wilt down or cook down a little bit, you might want to put a lid on this just to make it cook a little faster. It sort of depends on what you're going to do. So here we have this spinach. It's going to take just a minute for this to cook down a little bit. The spinach and the kale, I actually don't really like kale very much. I know dietitians are supposed to like kale, but I like spinach a lot better, and that's why I chose to put that in this dish. And I think that it's easy to work with. If you wanted to use frozen spinach, you absolutely can. You do not need to use fresh vegetables in every single dish. If you wanted to use frozen carrots or canned carrots, you absolutely could do that because all forms of fruits and vegetables count. So fresh, frozen, dried, or canned can all count towards making half your plate fruits and vegetables. One of the beautiful things about frozen vegetables or canned vegetables is they're already cut, right? They're pre-cut up and they are pre-cooked. Now, if you're going to use frozen spinach, I would warm it up first and then drain it as well as you can because the frozen spinach tends to hold on to a lot of moisture and you might end up sort of with a soggy dish. You're going to have too much water in here if you use the frozen spinach right out of the package. So that's the only thing that I would be concerned about. But using the frozen is fine. You know, it's not less nutritious than the fresh. I always sort of go with whatever I have. If I only have frozen spinach in the freezer because I don't have any fresh spinach in the refrigerator, then that is what I use. All right, so this is starting to cook down pretty nicely, and it smells really, really good with the onions, and the garlic smells delicious. Okay, so I think that next we're going to add the pasta water, and like I said, I have chicken broth instead of pasta water because I didn't save my pasta water when I was cooking it last night. So I'm going to add about half of that. And that sort of makes a little bit of a sauce in there. You can see that. That helps out with the pasta. And then what we're going to do is add the salt and the pepper. And we're going to add the other seasonings. We have oregano and red pepper. I'm going to add the beans in. Now I drained and rinsed those beans, so you're going to want to do that as well, so we can mix that all together. And then the last thing that you're going to do is you're going to add the pasta to the dish. So usually I would let this sort of heat up and make sure that the beans were heated through before I added the pasta, but I am going to just add it right now. So once you have all of that in your pan, you're going to have it heat up for about 5 more minutes longer, just because you want everything heated through. You can add more of the pasta water if you want to. You can add more of the broth, whatever you like to do. So I think that if you wanted to decrease the amount of carbohydrates in this dish, you could cut the amount of pasta in half, but add the same amount of vegetables mentioned in the recipe. You would then end up with a higher percentage of vegetables and a lower percentage of pasta, and that would decrease the amount of carbohydrates in the dish. Now, while this continues to cook, let's look at some beans and greens that I made last night. And here is that dish. Here you can see all of the greens and a little extra color from the carrots. So I hope that this recipe gave you some more ideas on how you can add more vegetables and whole grains into your eating pattern. Don't forget to join me next month with another edition of What's Cooking with NYSOFA, when I'll be making chicken and broccoli with lemon sauce on Friday, August 29th at 12:30 p.m. right here on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page and the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe so that you're always notified when our next cooking demonstration is available. This presentation was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material was funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.
Hi, I'm registered dietitian Wendy Beckman, host of What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to share healthy, nutritious recipes with you on the show. I work for the New York State Office for the Aging, and thanks to a partnership with SNAP-Ed New York, our nutrition team reaches hundreds of thousands of older New Yorkers each year. So why a cooking program? 60% of health costs and related issues have nothing to do with health, but instead have to do with individual behaviors like our food choices and physical activity. The recipes we feature are nutritionally appropriate for older adults, meeting critical nutrition requirements for healthy aging. What I bet you don't know is that this show is only part of a larger effort. To help me explain what our nutrition team at the New York State Office for the Aging does and what a registered dietitian is, here is registered dietitian Lisbeth Irish.
A registered dietitian is a professional who has training and education in food and nutrition. To become an RD, you must complete certain requirements, including a minimum of a bachelor's degree from an institution that's accredited by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You must also pass a national examination and meet continuing education requirements. What does that mean? As RDs, we are qualified to offer accurate advice about nutrition, and we can help answer your questions about how diet can affect your health. At NYSOFA, the registered dietitians handle many tasks. This includes hosting 2 online programs aimed at helping older New Yorkers make better nutrition choices. These programs are What's Cooking with NYSOFA, which is our monthly cooking demonstration, and a Facebook Live program that I host called Ask the Experts, Nutrition Edition. In the months ahead, be on your lookout for it. We'll be sharing your questions and our experts' answers about nutrition and health. New episodes of Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition debut the second Friday of each month on Facebook and YouTube.
As Lisbeth explained, registered dietitians at NYSOFA handle many tasks, including food safety at congregate meal sites, educational materials, and outreach. In the meantime, please don't miss an episode of either show produced by our team, What's Cooking with NYSOFA and Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition. Every episode is uploaded to YouTube, and you'll find the archive shows there.
Do you have a question about foods? Or do you have a particular health issue that you'd like to improve by changing your diet? Tune in to Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition every second Friday at 1 p.m. We'd love to hear from you.
Remember, registered dietitians are the experts in nutrition. Visit for more sound advice about eating healthy on a budget.